American actress Jamie Lee Curtis was in the news recently because her male-to-female transgender daughter Ruby came out. Ruby and Jamie shared an interview with People magazine where they discussed the coming out process and the emotions associated with the transformation. This, paired with a recent photo of Angelina Jolie and her children at the premiere of her new movie Eternals, sparked a question. What's going on with trans kids in Hollywood? As some may remember, Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt's daughter, 15-year-old Shiloh JoliePitt, has been an object of much media attention over the past several years. In fact, ever since she was 3 years old, little Shiloh has been spotted wearing boys' clothes and allegedly requested to be called John or Peter, like from Peter Pan. The media, like the predictable vultures they are, jumped on this and made the private life of this young child their business, running with the narrative that the child may be trans.
As you know, there's always buzz about Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie, but now some of the focus has shifted to their daughter, Shiloh. Life and Style Weekly has put the 3-year-old on its cover, asking if her haircut and wardrobe are too boyish. Here to discuss kids and their style choices are Life and Style Weekly news director Jessica Callan and psychotherapist Robbie Ludwig, a contributor to care.com.
In Jolie's own words, Shiloh, quote, wants to be a boy, so we had to cut her hair. She likes to wear boys' clothes. She thinks she's one of her brothers. Let's look at this objectively, shall we? Emulating your older siblings, not new. Just ask my little sister. Wearing loose-fitting, boyish clothing, not new. Just ask any 90s era tomboy. And a child asking to go by another name, also not new. Just ask 5-year-old me when I decided that I was Russian and demanded everyone call me Vuda. So if Shiloh was just being a kid, why make such a stink about her gender? Why spend years obsessing over the style choices of a literal child and speculate on their sexual orientation? The funny part of all this is after years of the media fixating on Shiloh's gender, they've pulled a total 180 and are now doing a major walk back, labeling Shiloh's style choices as nothing more than a tomboy phase. No kidding. This revelation came after the premiere of Jolie's movie, where Shiloh was seen looking girly in public for the first time in years. All of a sudden, she's a girl again, and no longer the LGBT icon they labeled her as years before, again, when she was a child. Interesting that it's just a tomboy phase now, and she's no longer trans. It's funny to see the media completely ignore the grotesque treatment of young Shiloh and walk back their medical diagnosis from trans child to ex-tomboy. As a former tomboy, I can personally attest that growing up in this over-sexualized world can feel extremely uncomfortable for a young woman. One day you're a kid playing shoeless in a mud pit, and the next you're supposed to be a full-blown woman. Well, some of us hung on to those kid years a little longer and chose to continue engaging in sports, messy outdoor fun, and video games. In my experience, it also meant wearing baggy clothing, sports jerseys, and having short hair. Jamie Lee Curtis's child is a child no more. In fact, Ruby, formerly Tom, is now 25 years old, so her choice to come out as transgender was probably based in years of thought, conversation, and hopefully therapy. But what about the inordinate number of young girls who are now identifying as trans? Are they actually transgender? Or are they like Shiloh, maybe, and like myself, just coming out of an awkward phase? Recent studies from the UK have shown, quote, rates of gender dysphoria for teenage girls are up 4,400%. Moreover, is it what Abigail Schreier in her book Irreversible Damage calls peer contagion, which is defined as mutual influence that occurs between an individual and a peer. Having been a teenage girl, briefly, I can attest to the massive amount of social pressure adolescent girls place on each other to fit in. When I was in high school, the hip thing to do was to get straight A's and be anorexic. It was a simpler time. Why are so many young girls coming out as trans? Is it because Hollywood is pushing the trans narrative so hard? Is it because girls are forming trans cliques? Or is the actual number of young women with gender dysphoria increasing? It doesn't appear to be so. The journal titled Gender Dysphoria in Adolescence, Current Perspective, published by the National Center for Biotechnology Information, says that for 80% of children who met the criteria for GDC, the GD, gender dysphoria, recedes with puberty, meaning 80% of kids grew out of it. What if I was a child today, with my short spiked hairdo and affinity for hockey? I'd have been susceptible to the eager teachers and counselors to label me as gender non-conforming. And I'm not alone in thinking this way. Just listen to what Bridget Fetisi said on a recent interview on the Joe Rogan Experience.
I had the worst penis envy my whole life. Yeah, my whole life. I mean, I think I absolutely would have transitioned if I was like a young influential teenage girl online.
You mean easily influenced?
Yeah, easily influenced. Sorry. Yeah. Yes. If I was, I don't know. I think a lot about that. If I was 13 and online and didn't have this parental supervision and I was reaching out into the void of the internet and didn't really like being a woman because I was going through puberty and felt uncomfortable and also was just kind of jealous because the boys seemed to have more fun, I probably would have been all in.
At the end of the day, we may not yet understand where this sudden rise in gender dysphoria comes from, but we can still protect young women from it by allowing them to be their authentic selves without labeling, drugging, or sterilizing them. For Rebel News, I'm Catherine Krasnowski. If you love Rebel News' content, which of course you do, please go to rebelnews.com and fill in your email or phone number so that if and when we ever get kicked off of YouTube, you will never miss any of our content. Go there today, rebelnews.com.